Yeah, it would have been hard yesterday for you to be anywhere on social media without seeing P.Diddy, Puff Daddy, or Sean Combs trending. He's one of the most influential people in hip-hop and in music in general over the last 20 years. He's a billionaire, tons of record deals, produced tons and tons and tons of big records, and now is the subject of multiple lawsuits and FBI investigations regarding sexual assault and sex trafficking. And it's pretty serious. The FBI raided 2 of his properties yesterday. So where does it all stand now? What are the repercussions of this going to be? It's a big story. And here now to help us unpack it is LA-based entertainment lawyer Ethan Bearman. Good morning, Ethan. How are you?
Scott, good morning. Thanks for having me on. Doing great. This is, as you already pointed out, a huge story, and there are many aspects to it. I mean, you correctly set it up. Sean Puff Daddy, P.Diddy Combs is a mogul. He's been at the top of the industry for 30-plus years. And for the allegations to come out last fall about alleged sex crimes that he committed against various women, his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend Cassie, and then 4 other women came forward, were the kind of the steps leading up to what we saw all over the news yesterday.
So when the FBI actually moves in like this, these sort of unannounced drop-in sweeps, that sort of makes me at least feel like, oh, wow, this is serious. This is not just a rumor. This is not just, mudslinging or, a settlement where, sometimes people get accused and then they just pay money to make it go away. This feels big and serious because of the FBI getting involved, at least to me. Do you feel that?
Yes, and it's really important to remember for whatever Sean Combs' attorneys and himself may say about these FBI raids, that it's very normal for law enforcement in a situation like this to move in with what appears to people who are not familiar with the process to be a very heavy hand. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. The standard in the United States is very clear that there has to be something called probable cause before a magistrate judge in federal court before they can issue an order for the agents to raid the property like this. It has to be specifically written. There needs to be probable cause. There needs to be some evidence that would lead a judge to sign off on a warrant for this kind of raid.
Okay, so it sounds like they have some of that at least. Now, do we know where Sean Combs is now? Is he in police custody? Is he at home? Is he on the lam? Do we have that information?
Scott, thank you for asking that. At this point, it appears that, according to the reports, the FBI did speak with him yesterday. He was flying out of the country, which I thought was interesting to note that there's been no effort made to restrict his travel, which really shows that this is at an investigative stage. But it appears he was flying off to the Caribbean with at least a couple of members of his family for a pre-planned vacation, so it wasn't something that just came up at the last moment. And again, it's always important to note, Scott, and I know you've done this, but these are all just allegations at this point, and it's an investigation that's happening. And based upon what they find in the investigation, they'll either not proceed, and usually almost never is there an announcement from the FBI saying, hey, we're not choosing to go after this. Actually, it's the DOJ at that point in the U.S. Attorney's Office that chooses not to prosecute. But they don't usually make an announcement if they're not going to proceed. You'll find out when and if they file charges that they are proceeding.
Right. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. These are just accusations at this time. And of course, we're going to watch it sort of as it develops. But there seems to be this, and that we know, like, our culture is super like this, that we're sort of more invested when it's a celebrity like this, in between last night and then when I woke up this morning to Google it, as you type in Puff Daddy or Sean Combs, now Prince Harry's name comes up because there were pictures of him with them, and Prince Harry was apparently one of the celebrities that as the story goes, that P. Diddy used to try to, hey, you can come to these VIP parties, and one of the VIPs there is Prince Harry. So all of these names kind of get thrown into the story, even though they're mentioned, one time or peripheral or whatever, but we just seem so attracted to it because these big names are in it.
Oh, there's no question. And also, just as importantly, we've had a number of these massive stories in the last few years. We had the Me Too movement coming out of Hollywood. We, from Harvey Weinstein to Bill Cosby to Jeffrey Epstein, speaking of very famous names and royal names being involved. We're always fascinated when people that, and when I say look up to, I don't necessarily mean we're trying to model our lives after them, but they're celebrities for a reason. And whether you agree with it or not, they are, and they're in the cultural, our brains and our consciousness. And so I find it hard to believe that Prince Harry's any more involved than simply having been invited to and attended parties. However, it's important to note that an accusation came out recently from a former Sean P. Diddy Combs producer accusing Sean Combs and Cuba Gooding Jr. as well. That's the allegation from this former producer, that both of them were involved in sexual misconduct in that against that producer as well. So there are lots of names that we're going to be hearing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of, I think maybe we also get invested in these things because, like you say, we see these people, and in so many cases, like we assume, normal people assume that it's like, oh, they just feel like they can get away with anything. I sort of look at celebrities and people like P. Diddy, and I'm like, oh, he just has this life where anything he wants to happen can happen, but that doesn't include hurting people and breaking the law. And if he did those things, I feel like we want these people to know that, like, no one is above the law, right? No matter what you do and how much you're worth or whatever, no one is above the law.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's why it's so important to prosecute crimes like these, alleged crimes like these, right? And I agree with you completely. I think there's something really important I want to say about all this, because there's also the show going on Max right now that's exposing some things from Nickelodeon, for example, that and we will want to see justice brought forth there. I'm around Hollywood people a lot, right? And I want to, and on sets and everything else with various people. And my personal experience is the vast majority of the people working in these industries are really good, hardworking people, just like you and me. But there are always going to be these examples, sadly, and exceptions where people abuse their power. Either they have really bad negative proclivities to start with, and then when they get that money and power, they use it to fulfill those dark and evil desires that they have. And to your point again, is we must hold them accountable and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, like we've seen with Harvey Weinstein is a great example of that, and Bill Cosby and others. But if Sean Combs did these things, and again, it's just allegations at this point, then we will want to see justice served.
And we'll continue to watch it closely. Ethan Bearman, he is an entertainment lawyer and media personality based out of L.A. It's always great to speak with you, Ethan. Thanks so much for your time and for helping us understand what's going on there. Hopefully we'll talk again.
Scott, thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome.